Okay, students, good evening. Today's our class is about anatomy of the large intestine, cecum, and the appendix. Learning objectives of the today's class are: at the end of the class, you should be able to understand the anatomy of the large intestine, understand the anatomy of cecum, understand the anatomy of vermiform appendix, and understand the clinical correlation of large intestine, cecum, and clinical and appendix. You see this is the surface anatomy of the large intestine, how it is disposed on the body. So this large intestine, or what is also called as colon, it is the last part of the digestive system. Its function is to absorb water from the contents and then pass the unwanted waste material from the body out through the anus. The parts of the large intestine are a frame for the small intestine. In other words, the small intestine are limited by the large intestine. The large diameter, the large intestine is large in diameter but shorter than the small intestine. The colon, what is also called as large intestine, is a distal part of the gastrointestinal tract, extending from the cecum to the anal canal. So from the cecum to the anal canal. Its length is roughly 1.5 meters and diameter is 6.5 centimeters. It is located beginning at the cecum in the right iliac fossa and termination at the rectum in the pelvis. Anatomically, the colon can be divided into four parts: ascending colon, which has also the cecum and the appendix. So this is the ascending colon. Transverse colon, this is the transverse colon. Descending colon, we're here up to descending colon, and sigmoid colon. So briefly about the cecum. Cecum is the first part of the large intestine. It is dilated region. So this is the cecum here. It is dilated region which has a blind end inferiorly. It is blinded inferiorly and is continuous with the ascending colon superiorly. It is located in the right iliac fossa, just below the junction of the ileocecal hilum. Coming to the vermiform appendix. The vermiform appendix is a fine tube closed at one end, arising from the cecum. It is usually 8 to 9 centimeters in length. Some structures it has the same structure of the wall as of the large intestine, but contains more of lymphoid tissue. It does not have any digestive function, but causes significant problems when it gets inflamed. What is the difference between large intestine and the small intestine? The large intestine can be easily distinguished from the small intestine by tinea coli, 3 thickened bands of longitudinal muscle. So this is the tinea coli. We'll again discuss it in further detail. The circulations of its walls between the tinea coli called hostria. These are the hostria. Appendices, apiculi or omental appendages, the small pouches of omentum filled with fat. So you can see these are the appendices, apiculi, and much greater caliber. Tinea coli, circulations, and appendices, apiculi, and the diameter of its lumen is more. This large intestine is conventionally divided into cecum, colon, rectum, and anal canal. Coming to the first part of the colon, that is the ascending colon, is one part of the 4 parts of the large intestine. It is connected to the small intestine by the cecum. So here we have the cecum part of the small intestine, and it is connected here to the cecum, and from it ascends the ascending colon. The ascending colon runs through the abdominal cavity upwards towards the transverse colon for approximately 20 centimeters. This means the length of the ascending colon is 20 centimeters up to the level of the liver, where this ascending colon, it bends, forming what we call as hepatic flexure. So that bend where there is at the close to the liver, bend between the ascending colon and the transverse colon is called hepatic flexure. Coming to the transverse colon, the longest part of the colon. The transverse colon is the part of the colon from the hepatic flexure to the splenic flexure. So from the hepatic flexure here, the transverse goes toward the left side and then reaches here to the spleen, where because of the spleen, it again bends downwards acutely, forming the splenic flexure. This is the loop of colon that extends across the abdominal cavity in front of the duodenum and the stomach. So this, previously as we discussed it when we were discussing the pancreas, I told you this transverse colon is to be removed to expose the pancreas. So this loop of colon extends across the abdominal cavity in front of the duodenum and the stomach. Near the spleen, it forms splenic flexure and curves acutely downwards and becomes descending colon. What is difference between, usually we divide this transverse colon into right 2/3 and left 1/3. It has some differences. Developmentally, the right 2/3 is developed from the midgut, whereas the left 1/3 is developed from the hindgut. There is difference in artery supply. It is right 2/3 is supplied by middle colic artery, a branch of the superior mesenteric artery, and left 1/3 is supplied by left colic artery, is a branch of inferior mesenteric artery. In other words, the right 2/3 is supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, and left 1/3 is supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. Nerve supply, right 2/3 is supplied by the vagus nerve, and left 1/3 by pelvic splanchnic nerves. Coming to the descending colon, the descending colon is a part of the colon from the splenic flexure to the beginning of the sigmoid colon. So from here, this is the splenic flexure. It goes downwards up to the sigmoid colon. The function of the descending colon in the digestive system is to store feces that will be emptied in the rectum. So it stores the feces and then that gets propelled through the sigmoid colon into the rectum. Coming to the sigmoid colon, the sigmoid colon is a part of the large intestine after the descending colon and before the rectum. So this part here is the sigmoid colon. The name of sigmoid means S because it is S-shaped. It is a bit S-shaped, that is why it is a sigmoid colon. The walls of the sigmoid colon are muscular and contract to increase the pressure inside the colon, causing stools to move into the rectum. So it propels the stools into the rectum. Briefly about the rectum. The rectum comes from the Latin word rectum intestinum, meaning straight intestine. Compared to other parts of the intestine, it is a bit straight and vertically placed. Is the final straight portion of the large intestine. It is slightly dilated section of the large intestine. It is 30 centimeters in length, and the rectum is continuation of the sigmoid colon and connects to the anus. So the rectum is again a storage of the fecal matter. The structure of the large intestine. 4 layers are present in the cecum, colon, rectum, and the anal canal. Mucosa, submucosa, muscular layer, and the serosa, as is a general rule for the alimentary canal. The arrangement of the large muscle fiber is modified in the cecum and colon. They do not form a smooth continuous layer of tissue, but are instead collected into 3 bands called tinea coli, spread at regular intervals around cecum and the colon. So in the colon, the longitudinal muscle layer is converted into 3 bands. Rather than a diffuse layer, it has one band-like structure, what we call as tinea coli. So what are these tinea coli? Thickened bands of smooth muscle, representing most of the longitudinal layer of the muscle. So we have this is, you can see here, this is the longitudinal muscle layer in the form of tinea coli. Just like we have this is the circular muscle here. The longitudinal muscle is grouped together in the form of band called as tinea coli. These begin at the base of the appendix. So these tinea coli, they begin at the base of the appendix as thick longitudinal layer of the appendix separates to form 3 bands. So at the base of the appendix, the longitudinal layer is separated to form 3 bands. The tinea coli run the length of the large intestine, merging again at the rectosigmoid junction. So at the sigmoid junction, again they form full layer, longitudinal layer outside. So after this, the longitudinal layer is in the form of 3 bands. When it reaches at the rectosigmoid junction, it again forms a full longitudinal layer covering the rectum. Because the tinea are shorter than the intestine, these tinea, they are shorter than the large intestine. That is why it puckers the large intestine. It puckers the large intestine so that there occur what we call a Hofstra formation, circulations. So because this tinea coli is a bit shorter compared to the length of the large intestine, there occur hostration formation. The 3 tinea are one anterior, so this is the anterior, one posterior medial and one posterior lateral. So one posterior medial and another is here posterior lateral. If we cut a section, we have one anterior and one posterior and one superior. Here is under what is called appendix epiploidy. So here again you can see well demarcated tinea coli. This is the tinea coli. This band is tinea coli. Again here it is band tinea coli all around. Now appendices epiploidy or what we call epiploic appendages. They are small fat-filled pouches of visceral peritoneum that hang from the tinea coli. So from the tinea coli, fatty pouches of omentum, they hang, they are called as appendages of epiploic or epiploic appendages or appendices epiploidy. Again, you can see this here is the tinea coli band, and these are the appendices epiploidy, these fat pouches. So fat-filled pockets of peritoneum projection from the visceral peritoneum on the surface of the lower intestine. There are many appendices epiploidy on the lower intestine except the rectum. Rectum does not have these appendices epiploidy. Also known as omental appendage or epiploic appendages. So they are also known as omental appendages or epiploic appendages. So appendix epiploidy or omental appendages or epiploic appendages are fat-filled pouches. I told you also there is what we call hostrations. Hostration or hostra. Hostrations, multiple pouches in the wall of the small intestine, large intestine. Hostra form where the longitudinal muscle layer of the wall of the large intestine is deficient, also known as circulations. Deficient means the longitudinal layer of the muscle. This is the tinea coli. Here it is not present. It is circular muscle. Because this tinea coli, it is a bit shortened compared to the intestine. So it pulls the circular layer and forms the outpouching, what we call as hostration. So this is one hostration, this is another hostration. So the tinea coli being shortened, it puckers the intestine, large intestine, and forms bulgings what we call a host tissues. I hope you understand it. Coming to the blood supply of the large intestine. As general rule, the midgut derived structures are supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, and the hindgut derived structures are supplied by inferior mesenteric artery. So the structures which are derived from foregut, midgut, they are supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, while the structures which are derived from the hindgut are supplied by inferior mesenteric artery as a general rule. The colon is supplied by the following arteries: by the ileocolic artery, by the right colic artery, by the middle colic artery, left colic artery, and sigmoid arteries, and superior rectal artery. Again, I told you the main blood supply of the colon is superior mesenteric artery and inferior mesenteric artery. So the superior mesenteric artery supplies the cecum, ascending colon, most of the transverse colon, mean right 2/3, as we discussed before, because they are developed from the midgut. The inferior mesenteric artery supplies the remainder of the colon, means the left 1/3 of the colon, descending colon, and the sigmoid colon, and the proximal part of the rectum. Proximal part of the derived from the hindgut. The middle and the inferior rectal arteries branches of the internal iliac artery supply the distal section of the rectum and the anus. Lower part of the rectum and the anus is supplied by the middle and the inferior rectal arteries branches of the internal iliac arteries. Coming to the venous drainage, the veins draining the colon follow the arteries. So the veins accompanying the ileocolic, right colic, middle colic arteries join the superior mesenteric artery, superior mesenteric vein. While veins accompanying the branches of the inferior mesenteric artery join the inferior mesenteric vein, they join the inferior mesenteric vein. The superior and inferior mesenteric veins ultimately join the portal vein. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, the lymphatic drainage of the colon is medically very essential because carcinoma of the colon spreads via lymphatic route. So it can spread into different places. There are numerous colic lymph nodes which drain the lymph from the colon. These nodes have common outline of distribution. Epiploic nodes are small nodules and are located on the wall of the colon. The paracolic nodes are located quite close to the marginal artery of Drummond, because these superior superior artery and inferior superior mesenteric artery, middle mesenteric, inferior, we have three mesenteric arteries. The middle mesenteric artery and the inferior mesenteric arteries, their terminal branches, they form a arcade of blood vessels close to the colon, what we call as artery of Drummond. We call it artery of Drummond. So these paracolic nodes are quite close to the marginal artery along the medial edges of the ascending, descending colon, and along the mesenteric edges of the transverse and sigmoid colons. Intermediate colic nodes are situated along the ileocolic, right colic, middle colic, and left colic artery and drain into the terminal nodes. Coming to the abnormalities of the large intestine, we have one abnormality, what we call a Hirschsprung's disease or congenital megacolon, because it is congenitally present. What happens? It happens when the neural crest cells don't migrate and create the myenteric plexus, parasympathetic ganglion in the sigmoid colon and the rectum during embryonic development. So in the intestine, if there is, as you know, there is intrinsic plexus of nervus, what is called as myenteric plexus, and the Meissner's plexus of nervus. So that myenteric plexus is a parasympathetic nervous system there, and in them some portion of the colon may lack those nerves, because during the embryonic life, they are developed from the neural crest cells, as my theory embryology. Neural crest cells, they give rise to different variety of structure. One of them is the myenteric plexus. So this myenteric plexus is lacking in some persons, and they develop what is called as Hirschsprung's disease or congenital megacolon. What happens in them? This state ends in absence of peristalsis because they lack this parasympathetic control. They lack the parasympathetic control here. They lack the parasympathetic control. The neuroplexus is absent there. So peristalsis does not occur. So when the peristalsis does not occur, the proximal colon, it dilates because of the fecal matter is not propelled distally. Consequently, the normal proximal colon becomes grossly dilated because of the fecal retention, causing constipation and abdominal distension. The constricted section normally corresponds to the rectosigmoid junction. Usually, rectosigmoid junction is involved in this Hirschsprung's disease, and commonly this disease affects us. Usually, it is congenital, so usually in the early age. So in the pediatric age group, it manifests. Usually, you may see the child is not growing properly, and their parents of the child say that he is having constipation and protrusion of the abdomen. So then biopsy is advised and they find their lack of their myotonic plexus nervus, and then this part is to be resected. It is to be removed, which is not functioning. That is to be removed, and end-to-end anastomosis will be made to the two functional areas. Means the rectosigmoid junction is to be removed, and then the descending colon will be connected to the rectum. Coming to the cancer of the colon is one of the important causes of death worldwide, comparatively common in those who are above 50 years, slow growing tumor and causes constriction of the colon. In advanced cases, it travels to the liver via portal vein, and if diagnosed early, hemicolectomy, partial resection of the colon is carried out to heal the patient. Coming to diverticulosis. Diverticulosis includes the herniation of the lining mucosa via the circular muscle between the tenia coli. So as I told you, we have tenia coli. This is the tenia coli here. This is the tenia coli. So this is the circular muscle hastrations. Sometimes it may increase because it is thin. It goes out as a pouching, what we call as diverticulum. Diverticulum is the outpouching of the lumen. So you can see these are the hastrations. So this hastrations expands outwards because of the weakness of its wall and causes diverticulum. Now, herniation takes place where the circular muscle coat is tubeless, means thin, where it is pierced by the blood vessels. The inflammation of diverticula causes diverticulitis. So this pouch may get infected, inflamed, called diverticulitis. Coming to volvulus. What is volvulus? In this case, a portion of the gut rotates clockwise or anticlockwise on the axis of the mesentery. So we have the mesentery attached to the colon, and sometimes it rotates itself. If the mesentery is long, it rotates and twists. So when it twists, it will cause constriction here, and it may stop blood supply to it and may lead ultimately leads to obstruction and may also lead to gangrene. It typically happens because of the adhesion of antimesenteric border of the gut to the parietes or some other viscera. It might correct itself simultaneously. It may come back. If it rotates clockwise, it shall move again anti-clockwise, and the obstruction will get relieved until the blood supply of the gut is cut off, leading to ischemia. But it may lead to ischemia if it persists. The sigmoid colon is susceptible to volvulus because extreme freedom of the mesentery in pelvic mesocolon. So the sigmoid mesocolon has a long pelvic mesocolon, long mesentery. So that makes it more mobile and more susceptible to volvulus. What is intersusception? Intersusception, it is a clinical condition where a proximal part section of the bowel invaginates into the lumen of the adjoining distal section. For example, this is the ileum and this is the cecum. Because of the reasons, this ileum, it goes inside the cecum, larger part. So this is the cecum, it has gone and this going in of the smaller part in the larger part is called as intersusception. Usually it occurs in children. This might cut off the blood supply of the bowel and cause gangrene. So as it goes inside, this wall of the larger part, it acts as a ring constricting part, and it may cut the blood supply of this part which has gone in and cause gangrene. The different forms of intersusception are ileal, ileum going into ileum, or ileocecal, just as here shown is shown ileocecal, or colocolic, meaning colon goes into the colon. The ileocecal intersusception is most typical form, common. Coming to the cecum. So this is cecum. This cecum, this dilated part. Sac-like cecum. It has come from the Latin cecum, means blind, because it is one end is blind. Is obviously continuous with the ascending colon, so it continues upwards. The cecum is a broad, blind pouch and is about 7.5 centimeters in length and 7.5 centimeters in diameter. So length and breadth are same. One of the structures in the body which have a length of 7.5 centimeters, meaning both length and breadth are same. One of the structures in the body which have length and breadth same. It is located in the right lower quadrant, while it lies in the iliac fossa, inferior to the descending colon. The ileum opens into its superior part at the ileocecal junction. About 2.5 cm inferior to this, the vermiform appendix opens into its medial aspect. So this is the vermiform appendix. Is just shown posterior aspect. This is the posterior aspect. Don't get confused. So this is the appendix which enters it medially. Unlike the ascending colon above it, the cecum is intraperitoneal. There is a cul-de-sac of the peritoneal cavity called the retroceliac recess. So we have a this arrow here. It shows there are recess, gap there. This recess is often deep enough to admit a digit. So there is a recess where there can be collection. When the cecum is distended or when it contracts, the frenula tighten, closing the valve to prevent reflex from the cecum into the ileum. Relations of the cecum. In front, we have their greater omentum, coils of the small intestine, and anterior abdominal wall. Behind, two muscles, iliopsoas, as you are seeing here. This is the iliopsoas muscle. Three nerves, femoral, laterocutaneous nerve of the thigh, and genitofemoral nerve. Two vessels, gonadal and external iliac artery. Medially, the appendix arises from the cecum. This is the appendix arising from medially. Coming to the ileocecal orifice, where the ileum opens into the cecum. This is the ileocecal opening, it is opened. This is the opened cecum. The ileum enters the cecum obliquely and partly invaginates into it, forming lips superior and inferior to the ileocecal. So we have the superior lip and we have the inferior lip, and in between we have the ileocecal orifice. This is the ileocecal orifice. These lips of the ileocecal valve meet medially and laterally to form ridges. So you can see superior lip and inferior lip. These two lips form these ridges, what we call as frenula. So these are the true frenula. So these lips of the ileocecal valve meet medially and laterally to form ridges called frenula of the ileocecal valve. So these are the frenula of the ileocecal valve. However, the circular muscle is poorly developed in them, in these two frenula. It is poorly developed, and the ileocecal valve has little sphincteric action. So it does not have much of the sphincteric action, except that it does not allow the contents of the cecum to go back into the ileum. But it does not hamper the passage of the ileal contents into the cecum, but it prevents the contents of the cecum to go back into the ileum. Here are ileocecal recesses. The presence of peritoneal folds in the vicinity of cecum create superior ileocecal recess, inferior ileocecal recess, and